All right, welcome to the first ever BSB Fantasy Football podcast here. My week one guest, Ryan Nelson. Thanks for joining me, bud.
Hey.
We're going to go over a few things, go over week one, week two, look at some draft stuff, hit on a few topics here and there. First off, I want to introduce the trophies back here. You've seen them already through the pictures. We got obviously the second and third place plates here. And we got the championship trophy, what we're all chasing right here, nice and heavy. And I think what we'll do, Ryan came up with a good idea. Is the end of the year, whoever wins the trophy, will get the honor of also naming it. So that's how we'll come up with the name in the end. The winner of the first year will get to name it, and we'll do a little plate around the bottom, and we'll be able to etch the names of the winners in each year. It'll be a traveling trophy, so it'll be cool. Nice little representation of the league, and should be nice. Also, what we'll have is obviously the Janae Rice Memorial Trophy for the regular season last place team, the guy who takes the most beatings throughout the year. And it'll probably be a golden toilet seat or a plunger or something. We'll figure that out later. And then for the regular season champion, we'll have just a plaque or something with names of the winners each year for the regular season. With that being said,
Let's move on to the draft breakdown.
let's go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and break down. We're gonna each give a few thoughts about what we thought of the draft, how it went down. First draft, obviously.
Get the draft pulled up.
Yep. First draft of the year, first draft of the league, and it went good for some, not so much for others.
Yeah, let's go round by round here. Just looking first overall, Drew Brees went first overall to Brody. Not gonna lie, I don't like taking quarterbacks high, unless of course it's like a Peyton Manning was a lock for 40 to 50 touchdowns. So I don't know. I can't say one way or the other how that's going to turn out, but I think it leaves you a little vulnerable with a weak team.
Yeah, it's a little different in the league we got here. It's a standard scoring league, but quarterbacks get 6 for touchdowns instead of 4, like you would see in most leagues, and -2 for interceptions as opposed to -1. Taking a quarterback first overall is it wouldn't be a move that I would agree with, but obviously Drew Brees has put up big numbers throughout the years, and if you hit on him, it helps your team out a lot. But again, I would have gone probably with a running back myself.
Yeah, first overall I had Adrian Peterson wrapped up, but that's all right. He's the team owner, so we'll let him go with that. Obviously, after that, it was Peterson, McCoy, Charles, Lacey, Forte, Johnson, and then Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, I think you look at picks 2 through 6 there, and the top 5 running backs in the league go bang bang right in a row.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, the arguably the 2 most productive wide receivers go next, with Demaryius Thomas and Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson's obviously a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Brody getting that, I think that's a good pick there at 7 with the top 5 backs off the board. I think you got to go Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
I think that's a good value pick right there.
Quick correction, that was Sam who took Calvin Johnson.
No, that was Brody and Sam switched picks.
Oh, really?
For each other, if you remember.
That's
they
right.
switched picks and they traded the picks.
That's
later
right.
on. You get into round 2, right off the bat. You got Tittsburgh, Ryan taking Peyton Manning, taking the second QB off the board. It's hard to argue with that pick given the fact that quarterbacks are getting 6 points this year, and the year that Manning had last year. It's hard to argue with that pick.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Jimmy Graham going number 10. He's really the only tight end you can take that high.
Yep.
Just because of the touchdown production, so it was a good pick.
Yep.
Marshawn Lynch, he's always a lock to get some good yards and a lot of touchdowns just because of the power that he has at the goal line.
Yeah, I was quite frankly, I was surprised Marshawn fell that far. I figured he'd be a top 2 pick in the second round. So
Yeah.
I was surprised he fell to me at the 3rd pick there in the second round.
I thought about
Obviously, I
taking
was
him,
happy
but
to take him.
I couldn't let Peyton Manning slip by since he was on the board with Demaryius Thomas.
Yep.
But after that, you kind of see the string of wide receivers come through with the quarterbacks getting mixed in.
That's when you start to see the wide receivers go. You got AJ Green, Brandon Marshall, Julio Jones, Alshon Jeffrey, each going within the top, within those next 6 picks there.
We'd say Des Bryant, but he doesn't have a quarterback to throw to him, so.
Des Bryant doesn't matter.
He's always a factor, but when he's getting crucified for the sins of Tony Romo throwing that ball where he's not supposed to, it's going to be tough to go with Des Bryant weekly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough with Des. You just don't. You have a hard time trusting Tony Romo, especially the way he performed in week 1 here. But we'll get to that in a little while. You got Matt Ryan coming off the board at 15 there with Kyle.
Round 3 was interesting.
I'm not sure I like that pick of Kyle taking Matt Ryan in round 2. I think you got Rodgers on the board still. I think if you're going to take a quarterback that high, you got to take Rodgers there.
Well, if week 1 is indicative of how Matt Ryan's season went, 15 might be the perfect spot for him.
Yeah,
he put up 34 points. If the rest of Kyle's team had performed, he would have won this week. And frankly, it was the performance of his running backs and his not so deep wide receiver play that kind of screwed it. But we'll get back to that.
Yep.
Round 3 is where we kind of start to see the RB2s start to go.
Yep.
Had our first read to the draft at 24 when I took Reggie Bush. Probably a mistake, but we'll see how that comes to roost.
Yeah, you got Foster going there right off the bat in the top of the 3rd round. That was Sam's pick. You got Monty Ball going. He's going to have a lot of touches this year. He's the starting running back for Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a Denver team that likes to throw the ball around a lot, he's got pretty much no competition at running back for touches. So
yeah, unlike last year.
Yep. Then you got another 3rd round. You got a couple more wide receivers coming off the board. Alshon Jeffrey, Jordy Nelson, both from the NFC North. And then I take DeMarco Murray. I take the 3rd running back in a row for me.
Yeah, really the last RB1 to get off the board, and
yep.
And it's kind of funny that really 3 out of the 5 went to you. So
yeah, I had my strategy. I initially didn't plan. I kind of wanted to take a QB higher, and but sometimes the draft plays out. You kind of the QBs I had on my list were taken already, and you got to improvise. And
yeah,
for some reason, DeMarco fell all the way to the bottom of the 3rd round, and I couldn't. I already had 2 good running backs, but I couldn't pass them up. Luckily, we have the flex spot, so I'm able to start all 3 of them.
Definitely.
And, I think I think that pick worked out well for me.
Yeah, and you look at running backs, and there's really 2 ways to win a league, and that's having strong running back play and strong wide receiver play are the 2 ways to win.
Yep.
So having strong running back play could be the big difference for you this year.
Unless you had Peyton Manning last year and he had 55 touchdowns.
That's true.
That helps too.
Yeah. Round 4, moving into that, obviously Reggie Bush was the 24th pick, but moving into round 4 at pick 25, the Tittsburgh Feelers, my team, takes Cordero Patterson. An interesting pick. You thought it was a bit of a reach, but
yeah, I think I don't know how I feel. I mean, he obviously had a really good week. He busted off the long run, 67 yards for a touchdown. I like how he started, obviously, but I want to see more. I want to see the consistency out of him, and I want to see him get more involved in the pass game. I don't think he was as much of a threat in that first game against St. Louis as I would like to see through the air. But obviously he had a good preseason through the air, caught a couple big passes, had a couple touchdowns. So, the pick that I thought was a little bit of a reach could turn out to be one of the better picks in the draft. We'll see how the year goes for Cordero.
Sure. After that, we had a couple more running backs rattled off this round. This round was actually more running backs than anything. Pierre Thomas and then Randall Cobb went next. A couple of good picks there. I think I would have switched those. I think that Randall Cobb should have gone a little bit higher than Pierre Thomas, just because he's going to get a lot of those runs that break off of those short routes in Green Bay.
Yeah, you see a lot of RB2s coming off the board here. People who earlier maybe passed on running backs, kind of scrambling now to get their starters in place.
And frankly, there's a couple here that I wouldn't have taken. Doug Martin, Andre Ellington, and Toby Gerhart, guys that I think probably could have waited till later rounds. They're mainly name picks, but Doug Martin, the muscle hamster really is no more. He's not really running the wheel anymore. And Andre Ellington, obviously, he's going to be out for quite some time with that leg injury.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't. I like Dre Ellington as a later round pick, as a good value pick in the later rounds. I think he's gonna get good touches in Arizona this year, but fourth round, 30th pick, I'm not sure I like that one that high. But that being said, again, these are teams that maybe passed up on running backs earlier, and you're starting to see kind of a blitz on them here, so you got to take one while you can before they're all gone.
Definitely. Round 5 is where we're gonna see Zach Stacy round out round 4. Round 5, we're gonna have Antonio Brown coming off the board first. Gonna see those RB2s and 3, or the wide receiver 2s starting to come through here.
Yep.
And start to see some tight ends come off the board with Julius Thomas. Obviously, with 3 touchdowns in the first week, not a bad pickup at all. It's just gonna be tough when you have quarterbacks getting 6-2.
Yep.
That's really gonna cancel out a lot of those wide receiver tight ends touchdowns.
Yeah, it definitely bumps up the value of a quarterback, and it takes a little bit of a hit on the draft stock of the wide receivers and the tight ends. But again, 3 touchdowns for Julius Thomas. I think that's a good pick by Travis in the 5th round there.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Brown, I think, was a good pick by Brody there at the top of the round. I think he's going to have a bigger year than people expected. Percy Harvin, I think Percy Harvin's a little bit of a gamble. Obviously, anytime he's healthy, he's a game breaker, and he can get a lot of points for you. However, the key word is staying healthy.
Yeah.
He's had trouble throughout his career, and I'm not sure I trust him staying healthy the whole year, especially the way he seems to run the ball so violently and almost welcomes the big hits against him.
And if you look at Percy Harvin, the way they used him in Week 1 against Green Bay obviously being a weaker defense this year, they're gonna run a little bit differently against Green Bay than anybody else. But Percy Harvin only coming away with 9 points this week, run a lot of end arounds, not really getting involved in the passing game very much. I think you can safely look and say that Seattle is still a running team first.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and then going down here at the end of the 5th round, Muscle scored again was my team. I snag my quarterback, my starter. I get Matthew Stafford with the 38th pick.
Round 5 value.
I looking on the board, I felt like I had to get a quarterback. They were starting to go a little bit, and we were starting to see some of those QB1s taken off the board, and I felt like I had to get mine. And again, I like the value there in the 5th round. I think Stafford's a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year with Calvin Johnson. I think he's good for at least 30 touchdowns.
Yeah, definitely.
And with his athletic ability, he's got the chance to get a couple rushing touchdowns like he did in Week 1. He got a rushing touchdown, and hopefully he'll stay away from those interceptions and stay healthy this year, and he'll turn out to be a good pick.
Definitely. Marcus Colston going at 39. Marcus Colston, it's kind of funny that he drops around in the draft every single year. 2007, he was a first-round pick. 2008, his second round. 2009, he's a third round.
Yep.
As he gets older, he's just lost a step. I don't think he's quite as good as he was a couple of years ago. And you see him dropping passes now, which really wasn't characteristic of him at Hofstra.
But had the big fumble there at the end of the game to set Atlanta up for the win against the Browns in Week 1.
Then we close that out with the Tittsburgh Feelers taking Shane Vereen. I'm going to defend this pick a little bit. I know a lot of people don't like Shane Vereen. Last year, he kind of saved me toward the end of the year when I picked him up and had him off of my IR. I really think that he's a good out-of-the-backfield option for New England. He's going to get a lot of touches. He put up 13 points this week, so we'll see how he does. And then round 6 starts out. We're going to see a lot more tight ends starting to come off the board. We got Vernon Davis. That was my first pick. Rob Gronkowski was still on the board at that point, and I had considered taking him, but with the injury history of Rob Gronkowski, I decided that it would be in the best interest of my team not to take him and risk that. Because I do believe tight ends are valuable, or they can be if they're a really good tight end.
Yep.
Russell Wilson coming off at 42 for Schlongy. It was a good pick by Sam. If he hadn't taken Drew Brees first overall, it would have been a very, very good pick.
I think that was the pick Sam said he got auto drafted for. He got bumped out of the draft or something like that.
Definitely, but it's still a good pick. I mean, Russell Wilson's going to put
not a bad
numbers,
backup at all. and God forbid anything happens to Breeze, he's got a good option right there, Russell Wilson.
Definitely. Victor Cruz going at 43. It's you.
Yep, I didn't have any wide receivers at that point. I started looking, and I felt, or I didn't. I only had one wide receiver at the point. I had Randall Cobb. I felt like I needed a solid wide receiver too, and Victor Cruz is a guy who's going to get a lot of targets.
Definitely.
In New York. The thing with him is I don't like him. I don't like Eli Manning. I really think Eli Manning's looking like he's gonna have a bad year this year. He's got to get it together in a hurry, otherwise Victor Cruz is gonna be a pick that I might look back on regretting.
The next pick, Andrew Luck. I think that this might come out to be the best pick of the draft at round 6. Pick 44 to have Andrew Luck on the board and have him put up 30 points in week 1. I think that Andrew Luck's probably going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Yeah, it was a prediction of mine early on that Andrew Luck was going to step up and kind of step into that elite group of quarterbacks toward the end of the year this year, and put himself on that level, as we knew he would be coming out of Stanford. But I think that in round 6 to get Andrew Luck and have him be your starting quarterback, I think you just got yourself a great value.
Yeah, well, and I think you look at the pick. You look at who's made by Tanner. You got to take Andrew Luck. Your team name is Go Lucky, so you got to have Andrew Luck on your team.
You trade for Andrew Luck at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and luckily for him, it worked out where he got a really good value out of Andrew Luck. I think Andrew Luck's looking at having a breakthrough year this year, and he should be a solid RB1 or QB1 for years to come. Right?
Definitely.
Good pick by Go Luck yourself there in the 6th round.
Giovanni Bernard, not a favorite pick of mine. I think he's probably going to take a step back this year, but we could expect some decent games out of Giovanni Bernard, but I don't think he's going to have a killer year like he did last year.
Yep.
Andre Johnson, obviously, he's at the end of his career.
That strikes me as a name pick.
Yeah, he's at the end of his career. He's going to have those hamstring issues like he does every year.
Yep.
Hopefully not too badly. Obviously, we don't pray for bad health, but hopefully he's okay. Greg Olsen, again, it's a filler pick. Not a great tight end to have. He's not even a security blanket for Cam Newton. That's going to come down to Kelvin Benjamin.
Well, and I think looking at it, you look at the pick. You got Rob Gronkowski taken right behind Greg Olsen. I think at that point, if you're going to take a tight end, even with his injury history, you got to take Gronkowski there. He's one of the top 2 targets. Brady loves throwing to him, especially in the red zone. I think you got to take Gronkowski there if you're looking tight end.
Definitely.
Granted, Greg Olsen, he had a good week. I think he had 15 or so points week 1, but that's with Carolina's backup quarterback. And I think in Carolina, Cam Newton, he's not one to throw the tight end a whole lot. Doesn't do a whole lot of tight end checkdowns like that.
Definitely.
Greg Olsen, he'll be a solid. You can start him at tight end and be comfortable with that. But I think if you're going to go tight end there, I just don't see the value in taking Olsen. I think you got to go Gronk.
And you look at Olsen and then Gronkowski. You kind of run the injury risk a little bit.
Yeah.
With both of them, Greg Olsen obviously having that history of concussions, and Gronkowski with the knee injuries.
I mean, that's the thing with tight ends. Obviously, tight end is one of the more physically demanding parts of the game. You're going to get hit a lot. You got to do a lot of blocking. It's just an injury-prone position. You're gonna get injuries there. So I think maybe both those guys probably taken a little bit above their value in terms of where they were taken in the draft. End of 6th round. I think you probably waited till 7th or 8th round to get a tight end.
Definitely. 7th round, obviously starting with Tom Brady. I hate to say it, but again, it's a bit of a name pick.
Yeah.
After 2008 with that knee injury, he really hasn't been the same throwing downfield.
Yep.
He's kind of on that downward spiral. He says he's going to retire when he sucks. I hope that's not the case. I hope he retires soon, just because I think he's probably toward the end of his career.
Yeah, I think looking at Tom Brady, ever since that year he had Moss, his touchdowns have just gone progressively down each year after year, and you see him being less and less of a dominant player. Teams are starting to figure him out a little more. Not that he's not still a great quarterback. Obviously, any team would be lucky to have Tom Brady on their team. He gives you a chance to win any day of the week. But I think just looking at from a fantasy perspective, I'm not sure. He's a guy you want to be starting.
Right. Definitely. And then obviously with 50, Larry Fitzgerald, another name pick. Kyle Rudolph, he's going to have those red zone touches, but he's not going to get a whole lot between the 20s.
Yep.
Frank Gore, again, toward the end of his career, he's not doing a whole lot. He's not a great rusher anymore. He's kind of a warm body in that San Francisco backfield.
And he's splitting a lot of carries with Carlos Hyde now, the rookie out of Ohio State.
Go Bucks.
Team. I think there's just a matter of time before Frank Gore's kind of phased out of that offense.
Yeah.
Carlos Hyde is basically Frank Gore 2.0.
Definitely.
He's got the same kind of body type, same kind of running style.
And he has better vision, frankly.
Yeah.
He's got better eyes than Frank Gore did.
And I think he's even a little bit quicker. He's got faster feet than Frank Gore.
The second place trophy there.
Whoop. All right.
It's plastic.
Crisis averted.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a resin type of thing almost.
Okay. I just didn't want it to break.
Yeah. No, it won't break. But I
That's
don't
good.
want it to fall either.
Right.
You look then you got Emmanuel Sanders, Anquan Bolden, Jeremy Macklin, 3 receivers taken towards the end of the 7th round. To be quite honest, I like the value on all 3 of those picks.
I would plan on taking Emmanuel Sanders at that pick. Obviously, he went at 53, a few picks ahead of mine. But I thought Macklin would come back and have a pretty good year, seeing as he's now the undisputed wide receiver 1 in Philadelphia.
I really like the pick of Anquan Bolden there. Him and Kaepernick have always had a good chemistry, and
when Bolden's healthy, for sure.
Yeah, and assuming he stays healthy, he's got probably one of the best pairs of hands in the entire league. He can bring down almost anything around him. He's got great body positioning, and obviously he's always been a guy who catches a lot of passes. So
yeah,
passing the ball in San Francisco, he's gonna be targeted a lot. And I really like the pick in the 7th round there. I think he's a good wide receiver 2 option.
Definitely.
I take Jordan Cameron at 54 in the 7th round there. Get my tight end. I think I like the value of that pick. He didn't have a great week 1, but I like the value of him because he's going to be targeted a bunch early on in the year.
For sure.
And I like his red zone touches to go up as the year goes on.
There's a lot of people that had Jordan Cameron rated in the top 5 for receivers this year, or tight ends. I'm sorry, just because of that, where he's going to get a lot of end zone looks.
Well, 117 targets last year, and that figures to go up this year with Josh Gordon out for a little while.
Yeah, hopefully coming back.
Yep. And also he's got Hoyer's. Hoyer's always like throwing to Cameron, so hopefully for my sake he can start to get a few more touches and some more looks, and like I said, I like the value of my pick there in that 7th round, taking the tight end at the end of it.
Definitely.
Round 8, moving in, start off right off the bat with Deshaun Jackson. Kind of a gamble pick with Deshaun moving from Philadelphia to Washington. You don't know how RB3 is going to perform.
I'll tell you, it did not pay off week 1. We'll fly through the rest of these a little bit just because we're kind of running long on this bit.
Yep.
Seattle. Ryan
First
Matthews.
defense off the board.
Yep, a good pick too.
Yep.
I would think it goes a little early, but it's still a good pick.
Yeah, you get the top defense. They're always a potential to get a couple interceptions, a couple sacks. You don't know.
Le'Veon Bell, Pierre Garçon, Rashad Jennings, Ben Tate, and then C.J. Spiller. Yep, all good picks, good value picks.
Running 5 running backs rather coming off the board there. Ryan Matthews, Rashad Jennings, C.J. Spiller. All these guys are RB1s on their team, and I think that you get really good value out of that 8th round pick there.
Definitely. Kind of moving into the flex territory here with a lot of these guys.
Yep.
Michael Crabtree coming off the board, kind of a bench player for now. We don't really know how he's going to perform, but then there's some more QB2s coming off the board. Jay Cutler, Nick Foles, Cam Newton, who started this week.
Yeah, backup quarterbacks coming off the board there. People trying to secure a backup.
Some good guys there. Jason Witten, don't really know how he's going to perform this year. Michael Floyd and Steven Gostkowski. Gostkowski going a little high for a kicker in the 9th round there, but that's all right. He's a good value pick. New England's defense coming off at 72. Is my top-rated defense this year outside of Seattle, who's obviously the standalone. Fred Jackson, my backup running back, coming off. Then you got Golden Tate, Carolina, San Francisco. Defenses coming off the board.
Yep. You got Decker and Wallace coming off the board there. Some wide receiver 2s and 3s options. Drake Bell for the Chowski's a good flex option.
Ray Rice.
Oh, Ray Rice. Yeah.
It's
Sorry, Brody.
It's hard to say. When we drafted last week, it was hard to see that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean
we didn't know.
To be honest, I mean Ray Rice is going to be a bench player anyway at this point in his career, so it doesn't hurt that bad. You can always in an only 8-team league. There's good value running backs out there to be able to pick up on the waivers if you need to.
Definitely.
Round 11, you look at you get another kicker in Hauschka, probably one of the better kickers in the league. He'll get a lot of extra points this year. Kansas City's defense, not sure I understand that one. T.Y. Hilton, Torrey Smith, Bishop Sankey, Tony Romo, Chris Johnson, Chris Ponder. Don't understand the Ponder pick. I think you're just giving up on the draft at that point.
Yeah, I was dumb. I don't want it to be dumb.
Blair Walsh, got to have a Viking on your team, so he takes a Vikings kicker. You look at Blair Walsh too. It's an interesting. Kickers have always been an interesting thing to me because they can have weeks where they just blow up and have 15 to 20 points on long field goals.
Definitely, and a guy like Blair Walsh with a leg like that is
who is going to be accurate from. You don't worry about him from kicking from 50 or beyond. Right. He's accurate. I like that pick, especially because I think that you're looking at a Vikings offense this year that can that's going to probably end up kicking a lot of field goals. I don't know how they're going to do in the red zone. I don't like their red zone weapons a whole lot. Jennings obviously has good hands. You got Rudolph. I just don't know how much I like of Castle throwing, and obviously defenses are going to be keen on Adrian Peterson.
Right.
He'll have his scores this year, but I don't think he's going to have a huge year. So I like the pick of Blair Walsh there. I think he'll have ample opportunities to rack up points with field goals this year. You look at moving on. You got Zach Ertz, tight end. Julian Edelman, Colin Kaepernick coming off the board kind of late in the 12th round here. I think that's a good value backup pick. Obviously, he had a big week one.
Mm-hmm.
Vinatieri, Crosby, a couple more kickers.
Yep.
And Steven Jackson coming off the board, and as well as Wes Welker to end the 12th round. Welker is an interesting pick. Obviously, he's going to sit on your bench for a few weeks with the concussion and the suspension problems. But when he comes back, he's a huge weapon for Manning. So
Definitely.
that could be a sneaky good pick towards the end of the year. You might see Welker making an impact on Team Douche.
Yeah, toward the end of the year for sure, especially with the drug policy changed. Got Trent Richardson coming off in round 13. Sean Sweejum, another kicker. Brandon Cooks, a good sleeper pick for the New Orleans wide receiver there. Yeah. Maurice Jones-Drew, again, just a name pick at 100. Terrence Williams, Carlos Hyde, a good sleeper pick by multiple scoregasms there. Kendall Wright and Kelvin Benjamin is one of my sleeper picks this year. I think he's going to be pretty good in Carolina there.
And then just to finish it off, the last couple rounds here, some names. RG3 coming off in the top of round 14. Richard Rodgers at 108 is an interesting pick. He's going to be the starting tight end this year for the Packers. The Rodgers to Rodgers connection. It could be magic. Didn't work out in the first week, obviously, but they were playing Seattle's defense, so you'd expect that. You'd expect his numbers to go up throughout the year as Aaron Rodgers targets him a little more.
Definitely.
You got Lamar Miller. The interesting about Lamar Miller, he's kind of given up the number one back responsibilities, but he still is in Miami the go-to guy on third downs, it seems like,
and in the red zone,
on passing downs, and in the red zone, like you said. So, possibly a good flex option on a week where you got a running back on a bye.
Sure.
You're looking at Phillip Rivers and St. Louis's defense coming off the board, end of the 14th round. Phillip Rivers, that pick there, I feel like Rivers is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the entire league, especially from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
You look at last year. He had a huge year. He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and he was probably not taken very high in many drafts. Taken here at the end of the 14th round, good backup pick. St. Louis' defense obviously solid, and then to end it out, you got Roethlisberger. Denver's defense, Stephen Ridley, New England running back, and Mr. Irrelevant in our draft, Cody Latimer, wide receiver from Denver, taken by the Tittsburgh Feelers, none other than your team. You get the first ever Mr. Irrelevant pick.
I don't understand why he's Mr. Irrelevant all of a sudden, but I'm just kidding. All right, let's move on to a week one review here.
Yep.
This one will be kind of fun here just to see what happened. We're going to go game by game here just real quick, starting with the Tittsburgh Feelers at the Coach G Rads. It's me and Travis. Final score here: the Feelers take the win, 111.26 to 104.48.
Close game.
Yep. Big performances out of Peyton Manning on the Feelers side from Peyton Manning and Patterson. Vernon Davis throwing up some good numbers, and then Blair Walsh being consistent on the kicker side there. And from the Coach G-Rad side, we had real solid game out of Julius Thomas with the three touchdowns.
3 touchdowns in the first half. He had a huge week there for him.
Yeah.
I think where he lost the game though is you look at his Jamal Charles only coming up with 3.4 points. That's not going to cut it.
Guys like Vincent Jackson and Jamal Charles that you expect to put numbers up that don't,
right.
they can derail a season that way.
As well as Alex Smith falling well short of his projection, only having 11.68 points.
Definitely.
You'd expect him to be more in the 20-point range. Granted, Kansas City this year is kind of iffy with how they're going to be, and especially playing against Tennessee, it doesn't look good for the rest of the year.
Definitely. Moving on to more
good for Travis is he's got Cam Newton coming off the bench starting this week.
Yeah, that'll be good. It'll be a solid game versus they play Detroit this week. I think so.
Yep.
And that'll be a solid game for him. Detroit's defense isn't fantastic, but we'll come back to that again. Next game is multiple scoregasms versus Waiver This. Scoregasms takes the win, 128.54 and 106.22. I'll leave you to break this one down.
Well, obviously, as I predicted throughout the entire draft and the entire lead up to week 1, I was going to blow Kyle out, and I did. Obviously, beating him by 22 points. The biggest spread of the week, and it all started with Matt Stafford picking up a big 34 points for me. Going on down to my running backs is the running backs where I really take the cake this year. This is where you start to see my draft strategy pay off.
Yeah, definitely.
My top 3 running, I got probably 3 of the top 8 running backs in the league. And Matt Forte, Marshawn Lynch, DeMarco Murray. Obviously, Marshawn Lynch beats up on a let's just say what it is, an atrocious Green Bay Packers front 7.
With LaTroy Guy on trying to plug the middle.
Right,
I'm sorry,
right.
It's just not going to work against Marshawn Lynch.
The Packers obviously miss Raji as Marshawn Lynch goes for 24 points on him. He had 2 scores and 120 some yards rushing, I think.
Definitely.
Forte having about an average Forte week. He was projected for 15.5. He came with almost 17.
Yep.
So a little bit above his projection. No touchdowns, but he had plenty of receiving yards and rushing yards.
Yep.
DeMarco Murray having a bigger week than I thought he would, but he punched one into the end zone there at the end, and obviously ran the ball well against San Francisco.
Yeah, looking at Kyle's roster, a real blockbuster performance from Matt Ryan, huge game for him.
Right.
But other than that, you look at these big names on his roster that really underwhelmed almost everybody, coming up short of their projections, except for obviously Greg Olsen and Roddy White.
Yep.
Coming up short. The kicker race, Sean Sweezum's going to kick a lot of field goals. I mean, the Steelers don't have a great red zone offense, so he's going to be kicking a lot of those. And then Kansas City's defense, I'm not real sure on that pick, Kyle. I'm sorry. I really think you got to look for another defense.
You might want to drop KC and go ahead and pick up a defense on waivers.
Definitely.
Obviously, he got no help from his running backs with Adrian Peterson and Toby Gerhardt combining for 15 points total. That's not going to get the job done.
Especially when your running backs are putting up 31.
Yep. And beyond that, I think he was able to make it close because he had a good week by Matt Ryan, like we said, 37 points.
Yep.
I think if we look back, Kyle actually had one of the top 3 scores of the week, 106 points.
Yep. Actually, looking at the spreads, it was actually Schlongy and the Choskis that was the widest spread. Beating you by a point. They were 102.82 to 89.38.
That's right.
So it was 23 points between the Choskis and Schlongy. Schlongy taking the win. Moving into that game here. And just positional matchups, Foles beats Breeze, but for the rest of it, consistent between 9 and 15 points. It looks like that Sam was able to pull it off because it looks like there was a lot of underwhelming performances on Ryan's side this week.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you looked at the projections early on in the week, and Ryan Chosky was supposed to pretty much handle Sam. Sam's team, I look at, is probably a contender for the inaugural Janae Rice Memorial Trophy for
Yeah.
worst team of the year.
And we'll come back to that too, but I mean you're right. It's a bit of a weak roster, a lot of holes, especially at the wide receiver position.
Yep.
Some guys that I don't really expect to perform super well. But I think that you look at the Chowskis, he has a strong roster. Nick Foles obviously is going to put up points. The question mark comes up with Dez Bryant, Rashad Jennings. Can Dez Bryant thrive with a poor quarterback play in Tony Romo?
Yep.
And can Rashad Jennings punch it into the end zone?
Yep.
Consistently every week. If that happens, I think that the Chowskis have a strong enough roster that he'll be able to win.
Yep. I think it also depends on the health of Percy Harvin.
Definitely.
He's a guy that you gotta be able to rely on to put up at least 10 points a week, and sometimes more. I think he's a game breaker.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Dez Bryant. How do you feel about Dez playing with Tony Romo? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to trust these points.
Leaving points on the bench like Brandon Cooks.
Yep.
You could have. Obviously, you're not going to start Brandon Cooks over Dez Bryant, but hindsight is 20/20.
Yep.
And you think about guys like that who are sleepers. Last game of last week. Going to move on to the closest game of the week.
It was a nail biter.
Yep.
It came down to one play in the Monday night game against San Diego and Arizona.
Separated by 0.36 points. This game was. It's going to come down to Douche versus Go Luck Yourself.
Brody and Tanner. Respectively. Douche will take the win, 96.26 to 98.90. Man, what a close game.
Led by a strong effort from Calvin Johnson. Consistency is huge, and Calvin Johnson's going to give that to you.
Strong is an understatement. It was a monster week.
Definitely.
A week that only Megatron could deliver from that wide receiver position.
It
looked like early on in the week Tanner had this thing locked up, and
with Andrew Luck scoring 30.7, you usually think that's gonna lock it up.
You look at with Calvin Johnson, coming down that he had that Monday night game, you never count Brody
Definitely.
out, and obviously Megatron had a big enough week to aid the comeback of Brody, and the funny thing is that Tanner had the chance to win it there at the end. They had San Diego down on about the 30-31 yard line of Arizona, primed to kick a field goal. 3rd and 8, shotgun snap goes right through the hands of Phillip Rivers, and he falls on it down by the 45 and puts him out of field goal range. They got a punt, and obviously Novak never gets a chance to kick another point. And that's the difference in the game. In the end, Tanner loses by 0.36.
Definitely. And you look at Jason Witten and Doug Martin, really just coming up flat for Tanner there. Doug Martin, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think he's a good running back. They're behind a really, frankly, piss poor offensive line. I don't think they're very, very good. And Jason Witten, same thing with Dez Bryant. They're really contending with not just the defenses, but really just awful quarterback play at this point.
Yep.
San Francisco putting them 19 on defense, though, for Tanner. That's a big number.
Yeah, I think the common theme we're seeing going through here is looking at wide receivers and offensive players for Dallas that rely on Tony Romo for points. It could be a meat grinder every year for those Dallas Cowboys.
Definitely.
Tight ends and wide receivers. Romo's always had a history of being able to choke things away. Usually it happens at the end of the year, though, not right at the beginning of the year. So we'll see how he progresses throughout the year. Obviously, if the trend continues, it's gonna be a dicey year for anybody with Dallas Cowboys players on the team who are prone to catching the ball.
Sure. We'll move to week 2 here as we kind of get a prediction stuff going on here. Our prognosticator hat on.
Put on the prognostication hat.
Yeah, which is obviously not a 7th grade word.
We got the prince of prognostication here. For those who don't know what prognostication means, look it up. Come on, you should.
You play fantasy football. That's kind of a big part of it.
We're not in elementary school here anymore. Pick up a dictionary once in a while. Put down the donut, Tanner, Travis, both you guys actually. But anyway, we'll get started here. Start off with your game, Ryan. The Tittsburgh Feelers, 1-0-0, taking on Waiver This Kyle Glazer, 0-1, obviously. Just break it down player by player. You have Peyton Manning. He's the best quarterback in fantasy football right now. It's not close.
Right.
He'll put up at least 30 points against Kansas City's horse crap defense.
Yep.
And Matt Ryan against Cincinnati.
Tougher matchup.
A tougher matchup, and obviously he puts up 37 points against New Orleans last week, but
New Orleans defense, frankly, is awful. Their back end is terrible compared to Cincinnati. It's not close at all. I'm going to see Mike Zimmer moving to Minnesota, but the back end is the same. You got the same players back there. It's going to be similar. So
yeah, and obviously Matt Ryan, he's kind of been an on and off guy the past couple of years. You don't know what you're going to get out of him, so that should be an interesting matchup. But I'll take Peyton Manning all day long for at least 30 points against Kansas City. Moving on to the wide receiver ones, you got Demaryius Thomas from Denver and Alshon Jeffrey from Chicago. Demaryius playing for you, the Tittsburgh Feelers. I think Demaryius, obviously only 5 points last week, but I think he's primed for a comeback week here against Kansas City.
Definitely.
He's still the number one target for Peyton Manning. I'll take Demaryius Thomas over Alshon Jeffrey playing in a perhaps underrated early on San Francisco defense this year. I think a lot of experts had them picked to have a kind of a rough outing in the beginning. Obviously, coming up with 19 points last week, San Francisco's defense will be just fine. And I don't like Alshon Jeffrey splitting touches with Brandon Marshall over there. I think Cutler's always looking to Marshall on the first progression.
Definitely.
So I'll take Demaryius Thomas there. Moving on.
Cordero Patterson versus Roddy White. Obviously, I took him at 25. I'm going to favor Cordero Patterson over Roddy White.
Yep.
Especially against what is last week was hopefully proven to be a markedly weak New England defense. Not really a whole lot on the back end, not a whole lot of linebacker speed. So I think we can expect big things out of Cordero Patterson. And Roddy White not being the explosive player he was early in his career, we can look at Julio Jones to be the breadwinner in the Atlanta passing game. After that, Reggie Bush versus Adrian Peterson. I'm not even going to go into this. Adrian Peterson wins that all day.
Yep. For obvious reasons.
Yeah, no pun intended on that. But
you look at the matchups. You look at the running back. It's not close. Adrian Peterson will win that. I think Adrian's gonna have a good week. Probably at least 15 points. You look to him for close to a 100-yard game, if not more, and probably at least one score against a decent New England defense, but it's hard to hold it all day down forever.
Sure.
I think he'll have a good week. Certainly better than Reggie Bush playing at Carolina against a very tough Carolina defense on the front seven that
definitely
is arguably one of the best in the league.
After that, we've got the next running back matchup. We've got Toby Gerhart versus Shane Vereen. I'm going to take Shane Vereen over Toby Gerhart 9 times out of 10, only because he's a threat coming out of the backfield. And Toby Gerhart really isn't. He's a forward. We saw at Minnesota. He's a forward runner. He's got the head of steam. He's not really going to get a whole lot else.
Yeah. He's almost like a poor man's Doug Martin.
Yeah,
the muscle hamstring type of thing. He runs straight downhill. I don't like Jacksonville's offensive line. I don't really like anything about Jacksonville's team. Obviously, granted they did win Week 1, but
they did not.
Or they gave Philadelphia a run for their money. But I don't like anything about that team, and I don't like Gerhart coming off a week where he was struggling with an injury and didn't have that great of a week as it is. I'll take Vereen as well against Minnesota.
Vernon Davis versus Greg Olsen. Now I'm going to go in a little bit in depth in this. Greg Olsen obviously playing a better Detroit defense this year. A lot of speed on the back end. He's going to get matched up a lot with Louis Delmas as the safety over the middle. Vernon Davis is going to pull a lot with Chris Conte. So overall, the lack of linebacker speed on Chicago's defense, combined with the fact that he's going to be covered by Chris Conte, we can look and assume that Vernon Davis is going to have a bigger week than Greg Olsen, simply for that fact.
Yeah. I don't like Chris Conte covering Vernon Davis deep.
They don't have anybody else who can cover him speed wise.
Well, you look at how much trust Chicago's got in Chris Conte. They just signed a safety off of the Vikings practice squad.
Definitely.
And Greg Olsen against Detroit, I'll take Vernon Davis. I just think he's a bigger weapon. Greg Olsen had a good week last week, but playing against a tough front seven in Detroit. I'll take Vernon Davis to win that matchup.
Definitely.
And then you got the flex guys here. You got Jeremy Maclin, a wide receiver, taking on Larry Fitzgerald.
And the New York Giants.
Yeah. You know, this is an interesting one right here, just from a matchup standpoint. Maclin obviously having a good week last week with 15 points.
But playing a tougher defense against Indianapolis.
Playing a tougher Indianapolis defense. Obviously, Indy gave up 31 points last week, but that's to Peyton Manning and the high-powered Denver offense.
The other thing to consider, too, is Nick Foles is going to have a little bit more time. Robert Mathis obviously out for the year with that Achilles tendon injury.
Yep.
I think I'm probably going to take Larry Fitzgerald in this one just because of the matchup with New York Giants. They looked like hell last night. It was bad offense, defense, special teams. They really just looked like a terrible team.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, you know, this is a tough one to call. I think I'll take Maclin just because of I didn't like how Larry Fitzgerald looked last night. I think Foles is gonna have enough time to read through his progressions. He'll find Maclin for a couple, and obviously he's a threat to score anytime he gets the ball in his hands.
Definitely.
So I will take Maclin, not in a blowout, but I'll comfortably take Maclin over Fitzgerald, and be happy with that.
Yeah.
Moving on to the kickers, Blair Walsh, Sean Sweezum.
I'm going to take Blair Walsh without getting too deep into it because obviously it's a kicker match. There's not a whole lot to get into.
Yeah, I think the Vikings offense will be able to move the ball pretty well against New England this week. I don't know how good their red zone offense is yet though, so I need to see more. I need to see more of the red zone offense paying off for the Vikings getting to pay dirt before I start feeling more confident in that. So I look for Walsh to be able to kick a lot of mid-range, intermediate to long field goals this week. I think he'll have a good week. But Sweezum also, he should have a good week playing against Baltimore. I think Pittsburgh will be able to run that score up pretty well.
Yeah.
And I'd look for him to have another 10-point performance. I'll take either one of them. Doesn't really matter. We'll call it a wash.
And again, not getting too deep into it, I think that I've mentioned it before. We won't get into it again, but Kansas City's defense is terrible, and we'll go with the other one. We'll go with When New England won't be starting for me, I'll be starting Minnesota's defense.
I'll take Minnesota's defense, or I'll take anybody's defense over Kansas City at this point against Denver. So.
Yeah. Moving on to your game versus the Coach G-Rads. We should try and speed this up just a little bit.
We're at 47 minutes right now. We'll try and keep it under an hour here, or around there at least.
Yeah.
We'll start motoring through them here a little bit. Stafford versus Newton. I'm gonna take Stafford.
I'll take Stafford 10 times out of 10 on that.
I like how he looked in week one. He looked sharp. He looked athletic. He looked poised. I'll take him over Cam Newton, who should have a decent week, but I'll take Stafford to have a better week.
Definitely.
Randall Cobb versus Brandon Marshall.
I think we talked about this. We'll go with Cobb just because of the matchup against the Jets.
Playing the Jets at home. I like Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball to Cobb. I think they found that connection last week. Obviously, Cobb's also a threat out of the backfield, and after he gets the ball in his hands, anytime you can get him in space, he's a threat to break a couple tackles and go long.
Yep. Edelman versus Jackson. This one's interesting just because Jackson didn't perform last week. Edelman against Minnesota. He's going to be matched up mainly against Captain Munnerlyn.
Yep.
I think I like Edelman in that, but I think Munnerlyn might get a couple of picks out of it. I think after that, we'll really just talk about tight ends. Julius Thomas is obviously going to win that, and I'm going to give Nate the edge in every single running back category.
Yeah, obviously it's Matt Forte, Marshawn Lynch, DeMarco Murray. Taking on Jamal Charles, Monty Ball, Giovanni Bernard. I like Charles to have a bounce back week. Playing Denver, decent defense, but I think he'll get into the end zone at least once. I like him to have a bounce back week. But I also like Forte against San Francisco. Obviously, I love Marshawn Lynch against San Diego in a pretty poor Swiss cheese defense there.
Yep.
And I like DeMarco Murray for a big week against Tennessee.
Definitely.
Getting into the kickers, Dan Bailey versus Adam Vinatieri. I think we went over this earlier. We both like Vinatieri just because of the indoor kicking conditions.
Yep.
And you know Dan Bailey. You don't know how that offense is going to run with Romo at the helm. We'll see what he does this week. But we'll get
they could not pass midfield. Dallas couldn't.
Yeah.
You know this. I think overall defenses will take Carolina over Philadelphia.
Yep.
Just because with Andrew Luck throwing the ball, I was saying earlier, I think he's going to take the step to be that elite quarterback, and I think it'll start mainly against Philadelphia again. So,
final prediction: who wins?
I'm going to take Scoregasms. Who are you taking in the Feelers game? I'm not predicting my own game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tittsburgh in that game. Jumping back to our last talk, I'll take Tittsburgh to win by at least 10.
All right.
And then I'll take myself. I'll predict myself.
Right.
I'll talk a little trash. Travis, you're going down. You're gonna be 0-2. You're gonna be at the bottom of the league.
Along with Kyle.
Along with Kyle, you guys will be having a party together. You'll be the early favorites for that Janae Rice Memorial Award trophy.
Yep. And then
moving on to Schlongy and go luck yourself.
Before we get into this, one thing we are going to say is, as we said before, Sam is our pick for the Janae Rice Memorial Award for the bottom of the league, the Golden Plunger.
Yeah, we can get into that one later, but obviously looking at this matchup, I mean, I don't even think we need to break down player by player. You look at Drew Brees and Andrew Luck, I think that's almost a wash. I think with the way Andrew Luck looked and the way Brees looked, given the matchups, I think I think you look at that as a wash. They'll both be within a couple points of each other. I think. Obviously, I'm taking AJ Green, Jordy Nelson over Marquise Colston and Bolden.
Definitely.
I'll take Peter Thomas for Sam over Doug Martin for Tanner. Neither of us are really high on Doug Martin this year.
Especially against St. Louis.
Yeah, especially against St. Louis in that tough front seven. I don't like him.
Chris
Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. I'm gonna take Le'Veon Bell beating up on a Baltimore organization that's hurting right now. No pun intended.
I do think Romo's gonna bounce back this week. I think we can expect a big game out of him, throwing it to Jason Witten and Des Bryant. So I'll take Witten over Ertz, and then I've got Emmanuel Sanders over Golden Tate because it's a little bit higher on the pecking order in Denver than Tate is in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on Jason Witten. Like you said, we'll see it. I mean, anytime Romo breaks out, he's got the chance to have a big week. But I just don't like the way he's looked. I think it's going to carry over to week 2. Zach Ertz had a TD in the first week. I'll take him playing Indy's defense. I'll take him over Witten by probably a few points at least, and I'll take Emmanuel Sanders playing KC over Golden Tate playing Carolina. Obviously,
I've got Gostkowski over Novak, but
I'll take Gostkowski over Novak. He'll have a few extra points. I think New England's going to move the ball decently well against the Vikings defense. Even though I believe the Vikings defense has improved, I think you look at Tom Brady, he's had a field day for the last 3 times they played the Vikings going back to 0-2. I don't think it changes this week, even given the injuries.
No, I am going to go off the grain a little bit here. I'm going to take San Francisco's over Seattle's, just because I think they're going to get more turnovers versus Chicago at home. Chicago went all the way to the West Coast to play, and Jay Cutler threw 2 interceptions last week against a speedy San Francisco defense. So
yeah, I'll take. I like the analysis, but I'm going to stick and take the safe pick. I'll take Seattle playing a pretty average San Diego offense. I think that offensive line is not good, and I'd expect 3 to 5 sacks minimum, and probably hold them to less than 10 points. So I'll take Seattle's defense, but San Francisco obviously has the chance to blow up with the interceptions there. Cutler's always been interception prone.
So overall, we're gonna go with Tanner over Sam this week,
and I think it'll be a pretty big spread. I wouldn't expect that game to be super close. I think you're looking at a 15 to 20 point victory for Tanner. Go luck yourself over Schlongy this week. And finally, get in Team Douche versus the Choskis, Brody versus Ryan, respectively.
Don't need to break this one down too much either.
No.
I'm going to take the Choskis in this one just because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to bounce back against the Jets. Got Harvin against San Diego, and you've got Rashad Jennings versus Arizona. And frankly, Denver's defense versus Kansas City is going to be another one that I think is going to be an interesting matchup, just because I think they're going to get some turnovers out of that. But
yeah, I don't like Kansas City's offense. I like Denver to pressure the quarterback and probably get a couple sacks, maybe an interception or 2. And even St. Louis' defense is good as well, taking on Tampa Bay, but I just like Denver's better.
Yeah, and just looking at Douche's roster, I mean, Tom Brady versus at Minnesota. You got Calvin Johnson at Carolina. That's really going to be the big points winner there.
Yep.
Because Julio Jones at Cincinnati, I don't think is going to be quite as good as he was last week. But,
and you just look at the rest of his lineup. Jimmy Graham at Cleveland, he should have a decent week, but he didn't overwhelm in week 1.
Yep.
So we're gonna see how that goes. I'm obviously Jimmy Graham's always a threat, but I want to see him perform before I start getting too high on him this year. Zach Stacy taking on Tampa Bay, don't really like it. Rashad Jennings, he'll get the bulk of the carries for the Giants. I like him. Obviously, like LaShawn McCoy to have a bounce back week. I wouldn't expect anything huge against a pretty decent Indianapolis defense.
Yep.
But I think you're looking at him getting a good amount of touches and probably a score.
Yep. So I'll take the Chonskys in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Just based on the rosters overall, I'm gonna go ahead and take Ryan to pull it off. He'll get 1-1. Both of them be 1-1. I'll take the Chonskys here in week 2.
Yep. So I think overall we've got the Tittsburgh Feelers, multiple scoregasms, go like yourself, and the Chonskys winning.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to our next thing we got here, which is our award predictions. So
you can start it out. We'll just do one by one. You go ahead and
yep.
start it off.
I've got. We started out with bench points. I've got. I think Kyle's got that one with Wave This. I think just based on who he had in his bench, it looks like there's a lot of guys there who are good performers there. The Use a Bitch Award for the most trash talk, the Unsportsmanlike Conduct Award. I've got Travis winning that, just based on his performance last night. That was quite some fun. Division, I've got multiple scoregasms taking one division, and I've got Chowski's taking the other division. The regular season champ, I've got multiple scoregasms. Most regular season points, go luck yourself. I just think that they're going to run some stiff competition week to week. The Janae Rice Award, I originally had Douche just because Brody wants it so bad.
He almost wants it too bad.
Yeah, benching everybody is not the right thing to do there.
Yeah, no.
But I'm actually going to take Sam. I think Sam's got an overall weak roster. The major holes at wide receiver, if I can analyze just a little bit here. By the way, Sam, if you're watching this, I have a lot of wide receivers. If you want to trade something, I got a lot for you. So
this is not a platform to propose a trade.
I'm not proposing. I'm just opening the door for him. Coach of the year, it's too early to tell, but I've got multiple scoregasms. We'll see how it goes throughout the year. MVP, I wasn't really sure. Is that a player award? Like player? Is that
MVP is like a top fantasy player, and that would be awarded to the team owner.
Okay, I've actually got Peyton Manning on that. I think he's going to throw another huge amount of touchdowns. But other than that, it's going to be close. I think that Aaron Rodgers could have a really good year this year.
Yep.
But it's going to be close. The best waiver wire pickup, it has yet to be seen. Just because it's week 1, we don't know.
Yep.
And there could be some players coming back. But honestly, I picked up Josh Gordon this week, and I think that could do it. If he comes back, he was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver last year. So
I can see that. I gotta be able to look at all the awards here. All right, so let's start with mine. Bench points. I'll probably take myself. I think I had a decent amount of bench points. I think I had about 50 bench points this week. Obviously you want to win that awards. Shows the depth of your team.
Sure.
The Use a Bitch, the anti-sportsmanship award. I really like that. I will take. I like Brody. I like Brody. I think he's put out a good effort telling everybody to go fuck themselves.
10-ply.
10-ply. I like that a lot. We're all 10-ply. Brody, I think you're throwing out the best trash talk. I like it. Division champions, I'm going to take myself in the Blumpkin division.
Okay.
And then, it's tough. The Chowski's division, not the Chowski's division, the Dingleberry division. It's tough. I like Brody's team, and I like Ryan's team.
I think this week could decide it.
I think just because you took the Chowski's, I'll take Brody's team.
Okay.
Those are my early favorites. I really like his roster a lot. Obviously, he had an A draft grade. He had a good draft. the game this week against Tanner was a little closer than I thought, but overall I like the strength of his roster. I'll take him to win the Dingleberry division. Regular season champ, I'm obviously going to take myself. I really like the way my team performed. I think anytime you get three running backs who are between 15 and 24 points, you got a really good chance to win, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. What's this one here?
Which one?
Most regular season points.
I write in cursive, so that's why you can't read it.
Yeah. Most regular season points. God, I hate to take myself again, but just based on getting 130 points in week one, again with the running backs. But I'll take myself again. I'll take Corey Adams in that. But I also like Brody's team to come back and score a lot of points. I worry about my team just a little bit in the wide receiver category. I'm a little bit thin, but hopefully I can get through the year. Obviously, you can always pick up a wide receiver on waivers, so I'll take myself for both points. The Janae Rice Memorial Award, the inaugural Janae Rice Award for the person who takes the biggest beating of the year, finishes dead last in the regular season. For me, it's not close. I'll take Sam all day long. Sam, I'm sorry, but I like absolutely nothing about your team. I think the wide receivers are below average, and the running backs, quite frankly, I don't know how they're in the league still. So yeah, I'm gonna take you to finish a healthy dead last. You'll be lucky to win 3 games this year, I think, quite honestly.
You took a steaming pile of shit on my draft.
Obviously, he's already got 1 win, but I mean, without a couple fluke performances, I think he loses that game big. So I'll take Sam probably to win about 3-4 games this year and finish dead last.
Slongy's a good name, but I think Cleveland Steamer would be more apt.
Yeah, for a steaming pile of shit.
Yeah.
Coach of the year. It's probably too early to tell. I think I don't even want to make a prediction here. I think you got to let it play out a little bit. We'll see who picks up the best waiver wire transaction and who plays the matchups best, and if there's any trades that work out well for one team, we'll see. MVP. My early pick for this is gonna be Megatron, Calvin Johnson. I think you look at what he did for Brody's team in week 1. Brody doesn't win that game without Calvin Johnson in there. 28 points, that's huge from a wide receiver. And I think that's with as long as Stafford stays healthy throughout the year, as long as he stays healthy throughout the year, I really like him to score a lot of points.
Definitely.
And I'll take him as my early season MVP. And I think that's it, huh?
Yeah, I think that was it. Hey, were you waiting the waiver wire then too, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah, waiver wire. We haven't seen enough pickups on the waiver wire yet. Although with the league's drug policy rules changing, if Josh Gordon comes back here in week 4 or 5 or whatever, obviously he'll be the top candidate for Hoyer to throw to, and I like him to have a big year then. If he can come back and obviously stay healthy and jump right into the mix with being suspended for the first couple weeks of the year.
Yep, and I think that's it for now. Well, we're way over an hour now, 3 minutes.
We're an hour and 3 minutes, so if you watched all this, God, you were a trooper. I don't think you did, but that's okay. Hopefully you watched bits and pieces. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll come back next week with maybe a new guest. Maybe we'll have Ryan back. We'll see if there's.
I'm the only one in town.
If there's anybody else in town, I guess it'll just be Ryan. But
I'll bring some more solid analytics next week.
Yeah. Again, Ryan, Tittsburgh Feelers, the owner of the Tittsburgh Feelers, started the season big 1-0. Couple 1-0 guys right here. Probably the best 2 teams in the league. Breaking it down, putting everybody else down as we should with the great teams that we have. So thanks for joining me in week 1 here.
Yep. Kyle, you're a piece of shit, and I'm coming for you this week.
He's coming for you. And, Travis, I would talk trash to you, but it's not even going to be fair. I would just feel bad for the beating I gave you this week if I talk trash on top of it. So,
Take a ride on his suck stick.
Yeah, I mean,
solid league reference.
You'll be you'll be 0-2, and you and Kyle can lament about how your teams haven't won a game yet this year. That being said, thanks everyone for joining us. Good luck in week 2. Keep an eye on those waivers. Keep an eye on those trades. Get your matchups right. And hopefully we see some good, solid action, some close games here in week 2.
Definitely.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.